Ladies and gentlemen, let me open a regular meeting of City Council, City of Pearland for Monday, June the 11th, year 2018. If you'll please rise, we'll have an invocation tonight by Councilmember Gary Moore, and our Deputy City Manager, John Branster, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this evening and allowing us to gather here tonight to do city business. As you guide us and give us wisdom in all our decisions that we make, we ask that you watch over our first responders, our men and women in the military here and abroad. We ask that you watch over us, each and every one of us, as we go home tonight. Get us there safe and allow us to get up tomorrow morning and start a great and wonderful day. We ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. It's still sunshiny outside and probably a little warm, but we are always happy to have our citizens in the audience as we proceed with our business in our great city of Pearland, Texas. If you move into your agenda, item 3 is roll call, and we have an unusual situation in which we have two council members that are not here tonight. Councilmember Ordino and Councilmember Reed are both out of town, and we are still carrying on. And we'll tell them about the good news and how the agenda came out in the final count when they get back in, if they let them out. Moving our agenda to what is called roll call. The rest of our council is present and accounted for. Moving to item 4 on our collective agendas, citizen comments. We do have a request from an individual in the audience, and Melissa Washington. And thank you for being here tonight. And of course, share us what your best wishes and your message is for us, and thank you for being here.
Well, and I'll keep it short tonight. Melissa Washington, 2903 Amber Hill Trail from the Pearland Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to thank you gentlemen all for your continued support of the business community here in Pearland, and especially the Chamber. I thank all of you who have already done our Conversations with a Council Member event, and wanted to let you know that Council Member Owens and Council Member Little will be joining us next Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. for another session where it's a roundtable discussion on events that are happening in the city. So if anybody can join us, we would appreciate it. So thank you, and thank you for all who have voted so far. You've got one more day and one more Saturday. Appreciate it.
My great pleasure. Thank you, ma'am. I think that's one more week. The final election will be this coming Saturday. Moving in our agenda to item 5, which is public hearings. We don't have one tonight. Item 6 is the consent agenda. And we have a rather short consent agenda, so I'll ask Councilmember Carbone if he'll present this for our consideration tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, approval of consent agenda items A through C. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second on the floor. Any comments from council regarding what's at request in that motion? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, we do have motion second on the floor.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Moving in our agenda to item number 7, which is matters removed from the consent agenda, and obviously there were none. Moving to item number 8, which is new business. Consideration and possible action. Councilmember Moore, would you present this for our consideration tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action, first reading of ordinance number 1494-2. So moved.
We have a motion second on the floor. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Good evening. This first item is relative to setting a speed limit. We have one ordinance that dictates the maximum allowable speed on city streets. We have a new Bailey Road after that's been in place. Traffic control has been in place. We conducted a speed survey, and so recommending the prescribed speed limit there. Also over on existing Broadway, FM 518, west of 288, have done a new speed study there and recommending amendment to the maximum speed zone in that area.
Does the council have any question or comment on this item? I could have added a street on there, but that's okay. A couple of streets, but we'll catch them later. Council have any question or comment on this item?
Just one, just for clarification, I know it's in the packet, but so in the, when we did the speed study in the 85th percentile on Broadway in that section, we're lowering from 45 to 40. We showed it to be 42, which would normally, I think, generally respond to us going up to a 45, but we're lowering it to 40 just to accommodate a lower school zone. Is that the thought process?
Councilman Perez, this came with lots of discussions over the past year with Alvin ISD, but then also with the travel patterns that are going on out at Broadway, and also with direction back at the time in August of last year with council in those discussions. The speed study was done at 42.7. Usually you can take a look at round up, round down, but with Texas law, you're allowed to have a plus or minus 5 miles per hour once the correct 0 or 5 at the end. So it's either 40 or 45. Once you round up, then that'd be 45. But with the travel and everything there, we recommend being at 40 using that minus 5 for that segment.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Little?
Yes, was Magnolia included in that study? Has there been a recent study on Magnolia? Are there any plans to consider increasing the speed limit on Magnolia from like 35 up to like 1128? I think it's 35 miles per hour.
Councilman Little, it varies. There's a section that's located along from Veterans towards Harkey, if I recall correctly, that is 35 miles an hour. That was set in the speed studies that were done several years ago due to the curvatures of the road and also with the school zone there as well for sight distances for the school. And then from there, there is a 40-mile-an-hour transition after that and before that. And then, of course, as we head to the county, there's a drop down to 30 miles an hour, but that's in the county jurisdiction. Our speed studies have taken place and taken care of within the city limits. And so that was done several years ago and set in accordance with that.
Thank you, Robert.
Any other question or comment from council? Hearing none, we do have a motion second on the floor, Mr. Secretary.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Moving in our agenda to new business item number 2, Councilmember Little, would you do present this for our consideration?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action resolution number R 2018-100. So moved.
Second.
We do have motion second on the floor. Staff report?
Yes, sir. This is a little bit of a contract cleanup and looking at our existing contract for dispatch on the emergency medical services. Those get switched over to Cypress Creek. Wasn't 100% clear about the renewal terms, and so this just cleans that up a bit and memorializes that we are renewing for them for these same 3 years we've seen. Each year we go back and look at that again, same terms otherwise.
I think that's worked pretty well over the years, hasn't it?
Yes.
Does council have any question or comment on this item? Hearing none, we do have motion second on the floor, Mr. Secretary.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Moving in our agenda to new business item number 3, Councilmember Perez, would you present this for our consideration?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration of possible action, resolution number R 2018-83. So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. We're ready for staff report.
Everybody in the Brazoria County portion of City of Pearland pays property taxes to Brazoria County. Also, there's a road and bridge tax that's levied. Through those funds, working cooperatively with Brazoria County, we refurbish roads within the city roads, and we do that with us buying materials and then working with the county on identifying with their labor some of the road reconstructions. We have 3 contracts here. 2 of them are for materials, and then the one that's up here, number 3, is for identifying the roads, as we've done the last couple years successfully. They'll be up for consideration. We were last year in a pretty good rhythm, trying to get this out earlier, but Harvey kind of pushed everything back from the county and our side, so we're here where we are now in June and looking to get these contracts going and get some road work done yet this summer.
Okay, does the council have any question or comment on this item?
Yes.
Perez?
Yes, Mayor, sorry. Just a little better understanding and how these roads were selected. Are they selected basically almost solely on their TBI rating, or are there other factors to consider? And the reason I ask, we've got a number of dead-end roads in here that obviously don't get traveled very much, but there's other roads in Pearland and the Brazoria County side that I think do have are in poor condition and get traveled more, and we could use the money kind of in there. So I don't want to throw a wrench in what we've already got planned. I think we move forward with what we got, but just trying to get a better understanding of how we're going to select them in the future.
Councilman Perez, we take a look both at the pavement index rating on that, so we'll see our lower streets there. We also heavily work with the county in terms of that because it's our tool and toolbox that we have right now, and traffic control is always a concern and issue with them, so they like doing a lot of the more of the roads that may not be as heavily traveled as we talk about, where the traffic control is not as a dominant concern. So that's where it leads to in our negotiations every year. We're always happy and try to take a look at more of getting the roads that are more heavily used, and we'll be talking with them in the future. But this was programmed a year ago, so we're moving forward with that. In our future coming years, we'll start looking at those those roads that may be more viable under your direction.
If I could, one thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, when we were looking at this, this pointed out that we also are selecting roads that aren't going to create any more drainage problems, because there are areas where the road pavement might not be in as good a shape, but once you get into those, you may be actually exacerbating existing drainage problems. So the universe of roads was somewhat smaller than what you might start out with. So.
Fair enough. At what point do we tie in our CIP into what roads we're selecting? And the reason I ask is, are we concerned that we're going to be throwing good money after bad on the card when that's going to be realigned at some point in the near future, or actually not realigned, but reconstructed in the near future with reconstruction of that road?
Councilman Perez, I know you're talking about the McCard section. We're several years out before we ever can get to that road for McCard project because of land acquisition and moving forward with that project. So in that time frame, it is still part of those discussions that happened several years ago about the order of roads, and so we're honoring that request at this time, and then we will then continue to proceed in light of the CIP, in light of the other items as you've mentioned already.
So right now, what do we have scheduled for McCard? When do we think we're going to start construction on that?
For TxDOT and our agreements with them is that land acquisition is over the next 9 to 12 months right now, and then it's planned for next year, I'll say is fourth quarter of next year in the budget for them. So you're looking...
Begin design or begin construction?
No, we're 95% design. We're in land acquisition now. We're waiting on that to be completed. So then you'll be looking at going out for letting in August, September of 19. We're talking 82 parcels that we're looking at to acquire.
I think the Thursday packet had 2022 for completion. Is that right?
That would be completion.
Yeah.
Sure, it's about a 2-year construction period, so one of the considerations is that this what's out there today has got to last through the construction and the construction traffic. So we've done this on some other roadways where we, based on condition, did not appear that they would last through the construction, or as part of the construction contract, have the contractor have to go in and overlay and maintain that during the construction. So this kind of works hand in hand with the project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question or comment? We have a motion second on the floor, Mr. Secretary.
Councilmember Perez,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone,
Aye.
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Little.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Moving in our agenda to new business item number 4, Councilmember Owens, would you put this on the table for our consideration?
Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2018-106. I move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Staff report.
And as I mentioned, this is the intergovernmental agreement with Brazoria County for the asphalt for some of those streets.
That's sort of interesting. They call it emulsified versus emulsified asphalt. What's the difference between emulsified and plain old asphalt? John?
It's always a stumper mare when you start talking about that, but it's just that's the formal name for asphalt being emulsified, which is the binders that are necessary to put that asphalt together.
Okay. Council, any question or comment on this item? Councilmember Owens?
I've got one, and it's a pretty easy question, though. Do we go in there and reclaim any of the asphalt through there on any of these projects or not?
I'm sorry, Councilman, could you please repeat your question? I didn't catch it.
Do we come in and recycle any of the asphalt on existing roadways to reuse it again or not?
With our current tool in the toolbox, Councilman Owen, is they bring in a recycler, and so they just mill it and put it right back in the ground and then pound it out. We don't mill it off and then go take it to a recycler and reuse it. It's just milled back into the base.
Mill it back in?
That's our current tool in our toolbox. We're looking at new ones in the future.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Council, have any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we do have motion second on the floor, Mr. Secretary.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone,
Aye.
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Little, Councilmember Perez.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Moving in our agenda to new business item number 5, Councilmember Carbone, would you?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, resolution R 2018-101. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Staff report.
And also another intergovernmental with Brazoria County, this for the concrete piece of the work that's about to happen.
Okay. Does the council have any question or comment on this item? Hearing none, we do have motion second on the floor, Mr. Secretary.
Councilmember Carbone,
Aye.
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Little,
Aye.
Councilmember Perez,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Moving in our agenda to item number 9, council mayor's issues for future council agendas, and there was no request for this item. Other business on our agenda? None. And it isn't often that we get through with the agenda this fast, and I wonder if having 2 of our council members absent has anything to do with us accomplishing this in such a dispatchful manner. But we are adjourned at 6:49.
Good meeting.
The next one won't be, though, huh? I got to get up the next morning, catch an 8 o'clock flight out.